Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConaughey. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality, pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Folks, please do send in your comments. Please do send in your greetings. Please tell us where you are watching from. And this is our final show before Christmas Day. We were going to be broadcasting also on Instagram because there is a new feature here on StreamYard which allows us also to broadcast on Instagram. But just before we went on, we realised that we would have to upgrade to a new package before they would allow you to stream across 4 different platforms. So that might be something that we'll be doing in the new year as well, but we can assure you that we will continue to keep growing. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, please do give us a thumbs up, because that's the main way that YouTube knows that we're active and pushes us out to all the other viewers as well. And if you're on Facebook, please also give us a like and give us a share. And if you're on Twitter, please do retweet or re-X or repost our content so that other people can see it as well, because we are Scotland's premier pro-UK campaigning group and think tank, as we never tire of saying. And thank you to the folks who are coming in on TikTok. Please tell us, do you support the United Kingdom or do you not? And if you don't, then why not? Because we need to know. We need to know your point of view on that. So please do tell us whether you support our fantastic United Kingdom or if for some reason you want to break up our unity. And please do have a good excuse for that if you're going to come fresh with wanting to destroy our unity. Okay, folks. Now, it's been a busy week in the office. And of course, what happened last Friday was our book, One Big Country, was released to the world on the global platform known as Amazon. Or at least it's been released to everybody within the United Kingdom at the price that it's been received, at the price that it's been published on Amazon at. If we wanted to send it to the rest of the world, we would have had to price it outside the range of most people. So it's retailing at $9.99, which is a good deal. And probably prior to Christmas, we'll also have the ebook version up there as well. And this is what it looks like, folks. Check that out. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? One Big Country, a big book for the Union, Volume 1. And that Volume 1 promises so many more volumes, concentrating completely on the authentic case for British unionism and British togetherness. So folks, all you need to do is go to amazon.co.uk and search for One Big Country, and you will find it. And you can search for A Big Book for the Union Volume 1 as well, and you'll also find it. And this was actually trending at the weekend in one of Amazon's bestseller lists as well. So imagine what we could do if this was published by Penguin or by some mainstream bookseller and we were getting interviewed on the Michael Parkinson show or the Des O'Connor show about our new book. Do these guys still have shows? I'm not quite sure that they do, but whoever is the equivalent these days, I must be showing my age, but nevertheless, One Big Country, a big book for the Union, Volume 1. And our aim is to produce a new volume every year for at least 5 years. who knows, maybe even longer. As long as we've got something to say, something positive to say about the United Kingdom Union, then we will keep writing and we will keep publishing and we will keep getting the great British message of unity out there. Unity, not division. Solidarity, not separation. That's what it's all about, folks. That's what it's all about. Now, tonight, at the bottom of the hour, we've got a guest. It's the one and only and the ever-popular NIALL FRASER. And we're looking forward to speaking to NIALL about what's been happening in the British politics and Scottish politics in the past week. And if you've got any thoughts on what's happening as well, please do send in your comments. TikTok is saying, encourage your viewers to share your live and invite more friends, folks. You heard it from TikTok themselves. Please share this live and invite more friends. McMonkey says the Pics were exterminated by the Irish. Well, possibly. I don't know much about that, or indeed why that would be relevant, but it's an interesting point. No doubt some people will have more to say about that. What side were you on in that epic conflict, McMonkey? On the side of the Picts or the Irish? That's my question to you, sir. Very interesting point to get things started with. Timothy Dexter says red, white and blue. Somebody says, are you sure we can't rebuild Hadrian's Wall? We may have to, actually, the way things are going down there in England. Fantastic. Send your love in, folks. Click the like, click the heart buttons as well. Good. Well, one of the amusing things that we've been noticing today is, and we're not following this really, but apparently there's a big scandal with Mone. Now, as many of you know, Mone is a great unionist, very much pro-UK and not afraid to talk about it. And the system, the regime, is for some reason going after her. And we're not taking sides on this particular one as such, but the regime thought that they could pour a whole barrel load of the proverbial over her and basically dump on her, and without basically shifting the blame to her instead of themselves. You know, this massive contract has been made and has been given out, and she happened to be in the right place at the right time, and she managed to take advantage of it. And I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, but the system is trying to blame her for the problems and for the over expenditure when it was they themselves who were actually literally giving out the contracts. So it seems kind of odd to me that you would blame the person, the businesswoman who picked up on the contract, rather than the actual MPs and government that were giving out the contract in the first place and who signed off on the millions of pounds that it's been said she may or may not have received. And she's not going quietly. And that's what I really like about her, actually, is she is coming out swinging on Twitter. Absolutely coming out swinging against Michael Gove and against other people who were responsible for these PPE contracts. And it's all very interesting. And it's interesting also to watch on Twitter, because Twitter's divided into like a lot of people who are just going, oh, she's just a rich capitalist, you know, and who are just basically envious of a woman that's got a lot of money. And that seems to be like the main boring angle that everybody's going in on, rather than saying, well, who are the people who gave her all that money, and what's their, were they right or wrong to do that? You know, so as I say, I don't know the full story about it, but what I do like to see is that she is coming out swinging, and that reminded me of was it a Facebook post that she made about 5 years ago? I think we've got that. We'll just bring it up. There you go. There it is. And Stuart MacDonald, who is an SNP MP, who has actually blocked us on Twitter, so we're not quite sure what he's up to these days. But he was having a go from the usual boring angle of, oh, Lady Michelle Mone, she's got elected to the... She's got appointed to the House of Commons. What's she ever done? Blah, blah, blah. Just from your usual kind of envious point of view. And there you see at the bottom there, since becoming a baroness and legislator for which she is entitled to £300 per day, Miss Mone has blah, 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 blah. And she came back swinging. What are you talking about, you SNP moron? I have voted over 78 times, not twice. I'm a global entrepreneur with 9 business interests, not a full-time MP like you. The difference is I'm a baroness for life, whereas you'll be out of your MP job in no time. And then she thought about it for a little while, and then she stuck the boot in. My £300 allowance goes to charity. What do you do with your £316 per day? Now off you trot and get on with your day job. Okay. So I was minded of that, and I thought, you know what? She's of that kind of person that's not going to be taking any nonsense. So as I say, it's been an interesting thing to witness. Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on that? Let's say hello to some folk, and great to see everybody. Derek Hart says, good evening, Alistair and the AFFG family. I hope everyone is doing well and getting ready for Christmas. It's beginning to feel a lot like a great British Christmas now, isn't it? I don't like Christmases that begin in October. If I was in charge of everything, I would say you can't do anything for Christmas prior to the 1st of December, prior to the season of Advent, which is a certain number of days, or is it a certain number of Sundays before Christmas. Anything outside of that, it should be unacceptable, and you should certainly not be selling anything Christmassy in the supermarkets or whatever. And I speak as somebody who likes the Christian celebration of Christmas. It should, though, be only confined to December if we're going to take it seriously. So that's the new law that I'm going to make once I'm elected Prime Minister, is no Christmassy stuff until the 1st of December. Anyway, we're now seriously into the season of Advent at the 20th. 5 days to go. Derek says, got the first volume of One Big Country. Brilliant read and well informative. Plus, on Amazon Prime, it only takes 2 days to deliver. It is still time to order one before Christmas. Makes a great gift. There we go. Let's get a screenshot of that right there. And Derek, we've got some pictures that you sent, and let's put them up one by one, because you really put together a nice little collage of pictures here, and we'll put them up in a moment when we get round to it. Good evening to you, Debbie, and to Scotland Scorpion, who's on time. Well, you're on time last time, and especially to Kat. And I want to say a big thank you to Kat for your help today as well, because it is our Christmas crowdfunder, and we're in the last week of our Christmas crowdfunder. We've only got 7 days to go, and we want to try to hit 25% of our goal for next year. So that's a very modest £1,250. We want to hit that by this time next Wednesday. And head to crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2024, folks. And thank you so much. Thank you so much to those who have helped to deliver what we've got so far It is really, really appreciated. Hello to Melissa and to Catherine as well, and to Stuart and to David from Kilsyth and Derek from Armadale. Great to see Derek as always. Good stuff, good stuff. And Catherine says that the wee book, the big book for the Union is amazing. There we go. Let's do that. And there's been a lot of folk who have been getting their big book this week and sending us some pictures. So let's go through the pictures that have been sent to us. Mahmood says, God save the king. I'm with you there, Mahmood. There we go. Isn't that's a nice one. That's a nice one big country. And that's a nice coat of arms in the background there. That looks like the United Kingdom coat of arms with the unicorn and possibly the lion on the other side of that. And there's another one of the same with slightly different lighting. Folks, please do send us your picture of one big country when it arrives, and check out the little badge there as well. That's fantastic. That's our AFFG, a Force for Good badge, our Union Heart badge, which has got a Force for Good emblazoned through it. And you'll get that at the shop. Okay. Wow. Somebody bought 3 copies. Because as we always say, buy one for yourself, buy one for a friend, and buy one for your local MP or an opinion former, or even for your local library. Take it along and donate it to your local library. So that's a big way to help us, is to do that. And thank you to the gentleman who sent us this picture. And when I was looking at that, I thought, we really are building up. We are really articulating the philosophical foundations of unionism and much more besides, through our magazine project and through our wee book project and through our big book volumes. We are taking this time and we are putting together the case. We are shaping the discourse, and we are changing the public policy on these matters to the extent that we can through the written word, promoted on our street stalls, promoted on our website, and even now promoted on Amazon. So if that's not worth a few quid in the crowdfunder, folks, I don't know what is. We are delivering the goods on that. Check out that photograph. Thank you so much to the gentleman that sent that photograph in. Talking about that, I was catching up on reading The National, because I read The National every week, every day in fact, so that you don't have to. And I keep up to date with the latest craziness that they come out with. And as I always say, the letters page is an absolute gem for people to kind of get a handle on the Scottish nationalist position on many things. And they're always obsessing about how they can get their second referendum and so on. And this is actually from last month, but big long letter here. Big long letter. Let's be clear, we do not need to negotiate our independence. These are the people who believe that somehow they're going to simply get their way by, quote unquote, simply asserting the fact that the Scottish people are sovereign. That is not just an empty slogan, it is a fact in constitutional law. Possibly. Since this is the case, we can't negotiate our independence unless we negotiate with ourselves, because we are the sovereign power. We as a sovereign people must take our independence, as of course other nations have done. Well, sure, but what happens when the sovereign people declare their sovereign will that they do not want to be separate from the rest of the United Kingdom? And guess what, sir? I won't embarrass you by mentioning your name there, But that is in fact what the Scottish people have done at every election, and since 1707, and when elections started, that is, for most of us, which was to say in the beginning of the 20th century. And also, of course, famously at the 2014 referendum. And we have an entire chapter here. Chapter 9, the SNP and its mandates. And we devote, and I'm really pleased with this chapter, because we devote the entire chapter to 16 claims that the SNP make regarding mandates. And we consider whether or not they are in fact mandates. And the first one is what this gentleman is trying to say, is that somehow there's a mandate because the Scottish people are sovereign and so they have a right to self-determination. And as we say, and I'm reading it here, that's not a sufficient mandate, since the electorate in Scotland regularly exercises its power of self-determination to maintain the Union. After all, if we understand sovereign to mean having supreme power residing in itself, and self-determination to mean the power of a population to decide its own government and political relations, close quote, then, as we've seen in a previous chapter, the electorate in Scotland has consistently used its democratic sovereignty and self-determination to vote for parties and people who want to keep the UK together, and long may that continue. And we conclude by pointing out that the most likely way that the SNP will get its way for a second referendum is if the UK government creates the route, because it suits its purposes so to do, such as, for example, a Labour SNP coalition government. That's the big danger, and that's why we must never rest. Well, it was on this day, 20th of December in 1911, that the Scotsman who founded the English Football League passed away. And the English Football League was the first organised association football league in the world, and perhaps one of the most famous today. And hey, it was invented by an Scotsman called William McGregor, who served as an apprentice as a draper in Perth, but followed his brother to Birmingham in 1870, and he opened his own drapery business in Aston, and he was to become associated with Aston Villa Football Club all his life. And it was through his association there, and we've got a picture of William McGregor because he has a statue outside the Aston Villa Football Club, I'm glad to say, and there he is, William McGregor, remembered as the Scotsman who invented the English Football League. And isn't that a great example of cross-cultural British fertilisation? And that happens so often that the Scots have impacted upon English culture, and the English have impacted upon Scottish culture, and it works with the Welsh and the Irish and the Northern Irish as well. This cross-cultural interlinking, interlacing activity that has created our United Kingdom that we have today. So that's William McGregor, who passed away on this day, and famous for his association with Aston Villa and for inventing the English Football League. Fantastic. Let us bring on our guest this evening, NIALL FRASER. Folks, some of you know NIALL. If you don't know NIALL, you're going to be well impressed with NIALL. He is activist extraordinaire. Say hello, folks, please, to NIALL.
Hello, Alistair. Quite an introduction there. Thank you very much. Activist extraordinaire. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to
absolutely,
have to live
mate.
up to that in the new year.
Yes. Well,
Uh,
I know that you will because you have been doing some extraordinary activism this year. You stood for the Scottish Family Party in
mhm.
Rutherglen, and you got a very respectable vote for that party. You
Thank
also
you.
set the internet on fire when
Mhm.
you told Hamza Yusuf um, to
Where to go?
go
Where,
forth
where
and
to,
multiply, as it
yes.
were. And tell me about that video though, because I know it got
Mhm.
it was hundreds of thousands of views. Certainly on TikTok.
Mhm.
Some last time I saw it on TikTok, it had over 600 and something like
Mhm.
650,000
So
views.
it's there's only one place now that the video remains in its entirety, which is on my Twitter. So it is. There's been various uploads of the video that have went to hello Dominic and hello everyone giving me comments. Um, so the video was uploaded multiple times to TikTok, my own account during the election campaign and stuff. And again, that was taken down off my account. Then it was uploaded to another account. That was taken down. Then Force for Good uploaded the video. That was taken down. Every iteration of the video, as far as I'm aware, has been taken off TikTok. Um, so, I mean, to me, it's the only place that you could put content that you can remain confident that it's going to remain there is probably Twitter. That's about the only place I would sort of deposit content these days. It's a shame because, like you're saying it, these different iterations of the video, they had 500,000 views, 600,000 views, 750,000 views. There were loads of different versions of it that got, I mean, overall, it's probably 2 or 3 million views combined. But yeah, it's been a big year for us. We're going to be ploughing on into the new year. It's going to be hard to sort of top what was done last year, as I'm sure it's just, and we just keep building and building and building. Alistair, you know what it's like. It's sometimes these activism things they either hit or they miss. That one was certainly a hit, but
What I've discovered is if you're in the activist game, if you're in the activist business, then there's always opportunities, and it's not so much a matter of topping something. It's just keeping the
maintaining, yeah.
activism going, maintaining it, and very often it just happens naturally. It's not something that can really be planned for in advance. It's seeing opportunities when they arise, thinking, are we in a position to capitalize upon that? Because very often one's not in a position
Yeah, of
because
course.
it's a day that you can't make it, or it's going to
Mhm.
you're not able to get there, or the organization doesn't have the money, or whatever it may be. But if things come together, then it's going to work out,
Mhm.
and especially if you've got people who can take it forward, through video, through social media platforms and things like
Mhm.
that. And so it's the opportunity is always there. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of things coming together in such a way that enable you to take advantage of it. So it's about building the ability to take advantage of
I
things
am
when they arise.
slightly disappointed though, Alistair, is that, once I had called out Hamza Yusuf, I thought, you know what that's going to do, Alistair? That's the domino. I've kicked over the first domino, and then the rest of the dominoes are going to fall along. I.e., the other dominoes would be other people calling him it, or other politicians out, or of the same nature. But I mean, it's not really coalesced. It's not really happened. I'm hoping that does come into the new year, but that's my only disappointment. Is know that I mean the video went viral. It went fantastic on a personal standpoint, but on a sort of on the main purpose of it was to get people to stand up to the politicians, to call them out, to hold them to account, um, and that's just not really happened. So I mean, that's my the only sort of disappointment I've got about it. But other than that, I mean,
Yeah,
we just have to keep encouraging similar type stuff, right?
yeah. I think so, and it also very much depends upon context as well, because the system won't allow you to like go up to a politician on the street and call them out. If you do that, you're gonna get a visit, unfortunately. We've seen that in Westminster and so on. Although there is a bloke who seems to be allowed to do that, which is that the anti-Brexit guy who's always kind of hassling politicians on the street. He seems to be getting away with it. But I think the best places to do it are in formal contexts such as you did, which was at a show, which was at an event. You were in the audience. At hustings, at things like that, where it's expected, that's part of the political debate. And the number of people who find themselves in that situation is always going to be few and far between. And the number of people who have got the cajones to stand up and make a scene are, very, very few people. So I wouldn't be that surprised, but I know exactly what you mean about it. And it would be good if there were more.
You bring up a couple of good points there. You know, it needs a set in circumstance, right? So you need all your ducks in a row in order to sort of pull this off. And you know, you said maybe it's an event at the Fringe, it's a hustings event, so forth. But the hustings event this year that I was at, none of the big parties decided to show up. You know, so the one time that I've got, or even members of the public, had a chance to question their the big three, big four parties. They didn't even bother showing up, Alistair. So they can't face public scrutiny, certainly. And when they did show up, the hustings that they did show up to was a closed studio event where there was no one else allowed in bar the candidates. But I certainly made their life a bit more difficult that day. So overall, I think, we're going to sort of turbocharge our activism going into the next year. We're going to make sure that the politicians are afraid to book a Fringe venue. You know, there's no way the SNP are going to be doing any Fringe events this year. I'm sure of it. Maybe we can catch a few other ones, but this is the politicians stepping into the comedians' domain, i.e. the Fringe, is just not one that people are going to really put up with for so much longer, because people like me will be in the audience calling them names, holding them a coon, hassling them, making their lives a bit more difficult than they normally would see, because obviously these guys are in a very sheltered echo chamber, these politicians, and they don't get that much interaction with the public as you would think. Holyrood to me is a big creche where they get dropped off in the morning, picked up at night, and they're just, it's sort of, it's childlike the behaviour that happens in Holyrood, and then the actual policies and stuff emanating from Holyrood. It's just the worst, and it can only be sort of described as like a creche for children who...
Yeah, there was yesterday they had their budget.
Yes.
And there's been various commentary about it, but as far as the SNP and the concept of having a budget is concerned, all they can really go for is to continue to tax the ever-decreasing number of quote-unquote rich people that there are in Scotland, which is not very many. I mean, I've lived all my life in Scotland. I've met one person that I would say was quote-unquote rich in my entire life, and that was just kind of a passing meeting. That I don't know where these rich people in Scotland are and what circles they move in. I mean, maybe certainly in London or whatever, you could find them. Maybe there are rich people in Edinburgh or something like that, but it's not like there's lots and lots of them. No. I mean, most people in Scotland are just struggling to get by week to week, month to month, and so
I had to scope out the 1 million. I mean, I've had I wouldn't say it's an opportunity to talk to rich people, because really we rub shoulders with people of all different walks of life every single day. You don't know if a guy is rich, a woman is rich, just by talking to them in the street. But I have had a lot of conversations with people who are moneyed up, so to speak. And they're just exactly the same as us, Alistair. They're asking the same questions. They're like, how are we supposed to function? How am I supposed to pay my staff? How am I supposed to do this, that, and that? Because, I mean, a lot of the rich, quote-unquote, people in Scotland are people whose, there's a huge amount of people's livelihoods riding on either this person's business, this person's company, in order to provide these mortgages and stuff going on in the future. So a lot of the pressure mounted on the rich people is quite massive in terms of the human sort of what you're providing all these families. But we're just making it more and more difficult for business in Scotland. I've seen that there's a large section of the budget aimed at education and skills, and none of it actually gives us what we need in order to improve the schools. It's just, let's just toss more money and hope that it gets better.
Yes, indeed. In fact, I was reading this article today. It says, where was the plan to boost growth, by somebody writing, as it happens, in the Daily Mail. And he points out something. He says that many of those impacted by the new tax band are going to be overly remunerated managers in the public sector, which is probably where the money is, actually, in Scotland. Although he then goes on to say these never-ending increases will impact on top talent in our fast-disappearing private sector, particularly in the tech sector, a market the Scottish so-called government purportedly wants to grow. And no doubt that's going to be the case. And it's going to raise 82 million. Apparently these new tax increases will raise 82 million, although other think tanks think it will be actually less than 82 million once other trends have been factored
when most Scots realise that they're getting sort of, for the lack of a better term, shafted in terms of taxation, they could probably just move to Wales, to England, and face less taxation. Maybe their business functions better in England. So we might see people just saying, you know what, it's time to move.
That's right.
We're going to be saving an extra X amount of $3-4 a year. We may as well move. It's because you're not getting anything for the extra money you're paying for up here in Scotland. That's the thing. In fact, your public services are like, public services? What public services? The roads are absolutely just, it's like twinned with the Gaza Strip here in Edinburgh, some of the roads. In fact, a bombing would make it improved. Some of these roads are so bad.
I know what you mean. I went through to Edinburgh today, and I was standing at the bus stop to get in, and there's this massive pothole just a few yards up from the and I mean about almost like a foot deep, like at least 9 inches deep. And I was standing at the bus stop, and I thought, I'm going to move, because if a car comes flying along, hits that, loses control, maybe it's some person, they lose control, they're going to plow into me. So I actually stood back from the bus stop, and I moved about 20 yards, 15 yards further down the road, because that was a possibility, because cars were coming flying by. I think something hits that, it's just going to go boing.
It's just
lose control.
It's funny, but in Edinburgh, I was walking along George Street, and what's the first thing that I see? The first time I'd seen it in George Street, 3 tents, homeless tents, outside one of the. I think it's the old Hollister shop, or the old. It's just 5 paces away from Starbucks. I mean, that's the first time I've ever seen that in Edinburgh. And George Street's supposed to be the sort of affluent shopping area, and you're just bypassing homeless tents straight away. So I'm like, I've never seen this before in my life.
No.
And it's not like
No,
I've got an aversion to homeless people or anything like that. It's just that I've never seen the tents.
no, I've never seen that.
I've never seen tents. So it's just we're going to
That's a
rack
bad
and
sign.
ruin here. I mean, Edinburgh is just getting worse and worse
Yeah, yeah,
every passing day.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. You notice that I was doing some googling last night. For some reason, I was looking. I ended up in Tokyo on the map, Google Maps,
Brilliant.
and so I'm just going along the streets in Tokyo, looking at them, pristine.
Yeah.
If in Glasgow, like they don't pick up the leaves, and so all the pavements now are just like muddy, right? And it's December. Okay, all this
Mhm.
should have been
Yeah, of
done in
course.
October, November, and just everywhere you go, it's just like mud now. And this is just maybe not in the centre of Glasgow, but certainly in the areas outside.
Well,
It's just like been abandoned.
I,
It's like,
I,
well,
I
what am I
certainly,
paying council tax for?
I certainly hope that the bin men in Glasgow are getting a sort of respite from the rat attacks with the freezing bitter cold coming in. Maybe it's keeping the rats at bay. But again, this is like um, it's part and parcel of living in a big city. Remember, Susan Aiken? I mean, the rats are everywhere. You can't
Yeah,
walk around some of the streets
yeah.
without stepping on one. But it's part and parcel of living in a big city these days. There's huge amounts of crime, huge amounts of rats. There's garbage on the streets. Your potholes will never get fixed, and you'll get taxed to the max. Welcome to Scotland.
Yes,
What a
yes.
great time!
As Derek says here, they don't clean the drains, and so every time it rains, you get flooding. That's
Yeah,
right, and most of the drains they're not even blocked. It's just like masses of
of
leaves
leaves. Yeah.
that have coagulated there, making things worse. But talking about making things better, I
Yes.
was interested to watch a video of yours where it was, I think, a 20-minute speech that you gave at the Scottish Family Party
Mhm.
conference, which was 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, I don't quite
Mhm.
know. But you came up with a very interesting policy to improve education in schools. Do you remember when you spoke about the phones? Do you want to elaborate upon
Well,
that?
I mean,
Because I think
how can I
it's
forget?
interesting.
It's so Scottish. I mean, I generally write speeches for activism's purposes, for to get a point across. But I mean, writing a conference speech is a bit different, Alistair, where you're sort of already sort of you're geeing up the base, you're coming up with new ideas and concepts, and you're just trying to bring everyone together, for the common good. So um, what I described as an era defining or an epoch defining policy is the total banning of smartphones and devices from schools. Um, and it
Mm.
is, it might, the way I say it's era and epoch defining is with this race, this digital race that we're in, every, smartphone's improving at the rate of knots, every single iteration of the smartphone, this digital rat race that we've entered into, we don't know the ramifications of the likes of social media has on an adult's brain. Never mind the ramifications it has on a whole generation of children's brains and the effects that it will have. So, I mean, see, when you have these conversations with people, and the more conversations I have with people about this topic, the more sound my reasoning becomes. I was talking to a guy, he says, sometimes I'm just scrolling TikTok and 2 or 3 hours will go by.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and you're like, well, okay. And do you think that's good? A good thing or a bad thing? I think it's obviously a bad thing. Is where the times went. I've not learned anything. Um,
Exactly.
and
Not. It's not as if every single video you learn something
no
from it. You do learn stuff on TikTok, though. I learned several things on TikTok, very interesting
dances.
things.
How to do the dances and the movements.
Well, there's that, I suppose. But seed oils, that was a big thing, which is bad for you, apparently.
Yes.
And so now I'm very much just back to lard and tallow, like
Yeah.
various fitness instructors tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I now go to Aldi and I buy the fattiest mints possible, 25% fat mints, because I think we've been lied to, and so much I'm prepared to believe that fat is actually now good for you.
Yeah, why not? I'm just going to inject some mainline some fat right into those veins, Alistair, and you will be right as rain.
Yeah, and it hasn't done me any harm, I have to say. I'm still able to keep the weight off to an extent. So,
I mean, keeping it to the education
exactly
system again, right? So, in my conference speech, I gave the problems first and then the solution. So then, in my speech, I go and say, we have a pupil at school, and they're a bully, and they're going to go attack another child or a teacher. So what do? They get their phone and then they hit the record button, okay? And then they fire into the attack, which is a big problem. So does that problem exist with or without the phone? I don't think it does. But let me run through some stats on or some improvements that happen when you take phones out of schools.
Yeah.
When you take phones out of schools, you get enhanced student engagement because it minimizes distractions in the classroom, promotes student engagement, and it eliminates the use of all devices. Improved classroom management. So this is a huge reason why teachers will overwhelmingly support it. So teachers regain control of their classroom, foster more positive relationships with their students. And when the strangest thing that I thought, the number one thing that I thought was interesting was when smart devices were taken from schools, staff intention improved.
Oh yeah.
It's instrumental in retaining school staff and cultivating a more pleasant work environment. Improved safety and security. Students cannot use their devices for unauthorized activities or inappropriate content. So, I mean, these are all very obvious things that I think we need to be tackling them straight away.
Is it possible, though, I don't understand fully, but is it possible to have like a digital free zone where you can't actually access it in the school premises? You can't actually access the internet through a phone or... So
the company that most people are... the company that I was using as a workaround is a company that operates in America. So we're not the only country facing this issue with schools, with phones, with digital media, with bullying, with TikTok videos. We're nowhere near the first. We're probably miles behind. In fact, America's the test case for this. So America, what they do is your phone goes in a pouch. Your pouch is sealed magnetically, and in order to open the pouch, you have to come outside school and touch it on a pedestal, and it unlocks the pouch. The pouch is a Faraday cage. Alistair, if you are familiar with what that does, so that just blocks any signal to the phone whatsoever. So it's effectively you've got your phone in airplane mode for the entire duration of the school day, right? And then once you leave the school, boom, your phone's back in your pocket. You're never out with the possession of your phone, which is a thing for kids. I mean, you don't want to be handing your phone over to someone and waiting for it to come back. But I mean, the issue is talking to my wee niece about this. I said, well, ideally, I wouldn't even need to have a technology there in order to ban phones. Ideally, Alistair, and it might seem, remarkable, but if I was a head teacher at school says all phones are banned, what's going to happen the next day, Alistair? People are still going to bring their phones to school. It's still going to happen. And that was the answer my wee niece gave me. So we have to implement this technology to make it impossible for the students to bring their phones to school. It's more protecting the future generation than it is adults. Adults are almost fully ingrained, engrossed in this digital age. But we should, at least at the very minimum, shield children up to a certain age from this digital sort of culture that we're in, Alistair. You see what I'm saying? It's like
100%, and I think that's really, really important as well for the development of the brain, also, and the ability to be able to concentrate, because something that social media is deliberately intended to do is to keep us constantly diverted, constantly looking at new stuff, as you say, much of which you don't learn from, some of which though you do learn from, and TikTok is, there's an awful lot of rubbish on there and a lot of bad stuff on there as far as grooming children is potentially, I believe, is concerned, but there's also some amazing information that you won't get on YouTube, that YouTube will ban. Political, historical, economic, medical matters that don't go along with the system. So you do get some interesting stuff on there, so long as you've got the brain to be able to process it suitably. We're coming on for the top of the hour. Thanks very much for that thought, though, and I think the idea of digitally being able to police, not so much police, but sort out the issues facing children as far as education is concerned is a big issue that none of the political parties are really addressing. And when they do address it, they get it wrong. In other words, they ban the good stuff.
And just similarly as well, I fully expect every political party with a sound basis to adopt this policy of ours, which is to ban phones. We've already seen types like the Wall Street Journal and America call for the absolute banning of phones in schools. But we expect other parties to pick this up and run with it, which is a great thing. But I also expect the other parties, the not so good parties, to say the opposite, Alistair. I expect the likes of the SNP and the Greens to say, no, we need a phone in every child's hand. We need a phone surgically attached to these children at all stages of life. We need them breastfed on the phone.
Digitally implanted in their brain, a recurring theme of Patrick Harvey talking about trans things or something like that, in order to keep them...
That's my nightmare sorted for tonight, Alistair. Thank you.
Sorry for that. But Debbie says really good idea for the phones. Absolutely. And that's one of the values of smaller parties, is that you can come up with ideas, run with them, and get them heard. Even that very, very
the
much
best
so.
thing is, Debbie, is that it can be implemented tomorrow at such a low expense, Debbie, and this is a thing that will not happen.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Niall, for coming on. I just wish you and your loved ones a very happy, great British Christmas.
Thank you very much. You and yourself as well.
Thank you, and a wonderful new year
and before I go as well, congratulations on completing your new book. I know it's quite an undertaking, taking on a book, so fantastic you've done it. And I know you've sort of cancelled a few shows the last month in order to get it done, so well done to you.
Thank you.
And I'll be purchasing a copy, right? So
brilliant.
Thanks.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, now, all the best to you. Good night.
Good night, my friend. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Fantastic. Niall Fraser, a great activist. I just wish there were more people in the Scottish political field like Niall. Outspoken, fearless, intelligent, diplomatic. Exactly the kind of young leader that Scotland needs. And in fact, Scotland has got, thanks to Niall. So we wish him the very best in his career. So we ended there talking about the book. Folks, you can get this on Amazon. There is One Big Country, A Big Book for the Union. You last purchased this item on the 15th of December. We did indeed, and this is the item that we purchased on the day that it was made available. And there it is, the first in a series of books which celebrate, advocate and educate on the Great British Union, otherwise known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This knowledge has been forged on the front line and honed in the heat of the action to defend, maintain and promote our one big country. And it's only $9.99. Cannot do it cheaper than that, folks. So please head over to Amazon, search for One Big Country and whack that into your checkout. Also, of course, we've got our Christmas crowdfunder, our Yule Britannia Christmas crowdfunder, and that's got 7 days to go. 7 days to go, and we're looking to get hopefully 25% of our goal. Ideally, we'd like 100% of our goal, but let's try to get 25%, folks. Lots of good rewards up there as well at crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2024. Now, you don't need to claim a reward, but you certainly can if you want by clicking on a reward item at the same time as you make your donation at crowdfunder.co.uk/AFFG 2024. And it's so important to keep us going through the next year, which promises, as always, to be an exciting political one, because it will be the year of the general election. Now, we are going to take our break for a couple of weeks, and we'll be back on the 10th, which is to say, not next Wednesday, not the Wednesday thereafter, but the Wednesday after that. And I do wish everybody who has watched the programme this year and who's watching tonight, I wish you a very Merry Christmas, a peaceful Christmas, and also all the very best for 2024. And I want to thank everybody who has made this another great year for A Force for Good. I want to thank everybody who's been with us on the streets. I want to thank everybody who's donated to us. I want to thank everybody who comes into our social media platforms every day and leaves comments and shares and likes and retweets. We can't do this without you folks. Thank you so much. And of course, I also want to thank our A Force for Good team, those of us who help with video editing, those of us who help with political outreach, those of us who help with our Instagram and TikTok, those who help with our Facebook page and our YouTube page, and those who have suggested ideas for us all this year. And also, of course, all those who came out on our street stalls this year. We did 12 street stalls throughout Scotland, Glasgow and Dundee. So thank you to you all, and it just remains for me to say have a wonderful Christmas, a great British New Year. God bless the United Kingdom, and God save the King. See you next year.